Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sam, and this video is a little bit different from some of the other ones I've done. It is a list, but it's not like micro brands or affordable watches. It's watches that I'm looking at and watches that I want to acquire in 2021. So I'm basically looking for a modern, daily wearable piece, ideally from a brand I haven't owned before, that I don't currently own, to complement my collection and really be a practical addition to it. So to start off, for those of you new, I'm just going to recap my collection here. So I have my daily watches, which I wear a lot. They're pretty rough and rugged. I do a lot of sport when, there's not a world pandemic going on. And these are my SKX 013, which is obviously great for water sports or any really rugged sport. I don't worry about this watch at all. It's great. And I also have my CW G10. There's a video on both of these watches on my channel. They're really what takes a lot of the, hard wrist time. And I'm looking for another watch to complement them because the SKX is a dive watch and a pretty chunky one for me. A pretty slim 6.5-inch wrists. So the 38mm size kind of maxes out my wrist in my opinion. And the CWC is quartz, which is great, but I'd rather have an automatic piece. And also it's a monoblock case. It's not the most refined design, it's much more utilitarian. So I kind of want a happy medium, some sort of non-dive watch, but also pretty nicely designed piece, which I can wear on the daily. So another watch which I wear pretty daily, but I don't consider a daily watch, is this, my Tudor Oyster. It's a great piece. It's a Oyster case by Rolex, 34mm. One of my favorite watches, but it's just, as it's vintage and as it's plexiglass, I don't like to beat it around as much. Also, I've got it on a nice new leather strap, which I don't want to get wet too much. So this is kind of being more and more baby the more I wear it and the more I've owned it, which is fine by me. I have plenty of other pieces to beat up. And I just want an alternative to this, which I can use more and not have to worry about the plexiglass or the leather strap or even water resistance. I know it's a screw down crown, but I still worry. And this is what I would call a casual watch in my collection. So I had this, and I also had an Omega Chronostop, which I wore kind of in a similar style. If I wasn't doing as much activity that day, I would just have it on my wrist on a strap. Really good looking piece and a nice design, but not really a watch I want to take and beat about and do activity with, which is fine. That's a different type of day for me and a different type of watch. But I'm looking for something, again, more rugged and something I don't have to worry about as much as those vintage pieces. And the third type of watch I have in my collection is really the collect watches. And by that I mean pieces that are either sentimental, which I don't wear much, or the design I really love, but I just don't wear much. So a good example of this is my Russian pieces, which I just did a video on. They're really cool. This raquette here actually fits my wrists pretty well, but it's not, the most comfortable piece right now. And I really just own it due to the design and hands. And that's just a part of my collection which I've always had. I've always had kind of quirky things which I don't wear much, but I just like looking at and enjoying. Okay, now my methodology for kind of finding the perfect daily watch, non-dive watch of a certain size XYZ. I obviously had to set out parameters for this, right? So the parameters here are as follows. So a 34 to 38mm case. As I said, I have 6.5-inch wrists. I'm not the beefiest guy. So I can wear pretty small watches, and kind of 38 seems to be my top end. Both my SKX and my CWC are both 38mm. But I really think something like 36 would be a good size for a daily watch for me. Now to go with that 34 to 38mm case, I'd really love a metal bracelet. My SKX actually isn't on the bracelet right now, but it's one of my favorite watches on the bracelet. I just generally prefer bracelets over straps. Not really sure why, I just enjoy the clasp more. I like how it feels on my wrist. And for a more rugged watch which I can take anywhere, I'd like to have it on a bracelet from the factory ideally. I'm not super picky with bracelets. I know a lot of people complain about like the Saab bracelet. I found that bracelet fine. So as long as it's got a metal bracelet, I'd be pretty happy. Again, now the next section kind of rules out a lot of vintage pieces, and that's having a sapphire crystal. None of the pieces in my collection actually currently have sapphire crystals. I've somehow avoided the modern watches which have them. My SKX is hard legs, and then a lot of my vintage pieces, I guess the rest of my vintage pieces are all acrylic. It's not a material I dislike, but for a daily piece, I'd like to experience a sapphire watch. Okay, so the next section is having an automatic movement. I'm not too tied on this. I actually do really like quartz watches, like my CWC and this Casio here. I like the practicality of being able to pick up a watch and just have the time be correct. Then again, as watch people and watch nerds, we do enjoy automatic movements. We can't deny that. So in an ideal world, it would be an automatic caliber, but that's not one I'm as tied to as, say, the size of the watch. Okay, the next section is having a neutral dial color. I'd prefer a darker shade. I think I do like black dial watches in general. Although, you know, silver and white and stuff like that are fine too. I think ideally a black dial would be cool, or if like the shade of blue is particularly appealing to me, that's probably what I'm gonna go for. And the next requirement here is a bit of a contentious one, as you'll see later, but that's not a brand I already own. Because I really want to spend this money to experience new watches and new companies. So I feel like spending it on, say, like another Seiko or another Tudor would be a bit of a waste of the opportunity. I don't think it's particularly bad. I love both brands, but you'll see in a bit that I get drawn to the same brands over and over. And I really want to experience as much as I can and try to have a pretty varied collection. That's just what I enjoy. Another nominal budget I've set for all these watches, it's kind of based on what I'm earning in a year as a student, and also kind of what watches I could flip in order to raise some funds to buy a watch if I was particularly drawn to it. And that's around £2,000. Now, I wouldn't love to spend the entire amount unless it's something that I'm completely taken with. Ideally, I'd spend less, maybe like, ideally like £1,000 would be great if I could get into something nice for that money. But just with my requirements and kind of the brands I'm looking at, I feel like £2,000 is, let's just say it's pretty easy to spend all of that and then go over. So I'm trying to keep myself in that limited range. I understand I'm lucky to be able to spend that money on watches, and spending that much money isn't comfortable for me yet, which is why I'm doing so much research into every single one of the watches on this list. And I'll no doubt do more research before I end up buying one of them. Okay, so the first watch on this list is one that I've actually liked for a couple years now, and it's really before I even considered buying one. It was way out my price range when I first started thinking of it. It's the Seamaster Aquaterra 36mm. And this is because the design is really appealing to me. The hands and the lugs especially, I just really like how they're executed. And also, it's not a brand I own anymore, as I actually sold my Omega Chronostop at the end of 2020. And Omega's a brand I like, so I wouldn't mind adding another one to the collection at all, especially as that would be a much more modern piece than my Chronostop. The downside of this piece is the cost of the automatic model. I think if I search really hard, I could probably snag one for under £2,000. But I'd rather have a nice example of the quartz version. As I said, I have nothing against quartz watches, but that is a small compromise I'd have to make in order to own one of these. But it's a definite contender for me. Now the next pick here is a little bit out of the box because right off the bat it's two-tone. It's not two-tone steel and gold, it's actually two-tone steel and bronze. And this is an Oris pointed 8 36mm with this nice dark blue dial. This is a watch that I think I just saw on Instagram, and I must have just seen one really great photo of one. I keep researching it and trying to learn more about it. Oris pointer dates on their website are a bit annoying to navigate because the different sizes aren't really laid out that well in my opinion. I think they could do with a bit of a website upgrade. But I did finally figure out that yes, they do make a 36mm two-tone pointer date. However, they don't offer it on the bracelet from the factory. I guess this is because they don't have a two-tone bracelet. But what I could do, as this watch kind of costs on the lower end of some of the watches on this list, is that I could source another steel bracelet, all steel bracelet, from a different model of 36mm pointer date. I've spoken to some Oris collectors and they say this is fairly easy to do. If I just ask my AD nicely, they should be able to order me that replacement part and I can fit it to the two-tone model. Should be no issue there. It would just incur a bit of a hassle and a little bit extra cost. But I think it could be something really cool to do. And again, I really like the design of this watch. I'm a bit of a sucker for pointer dates. It's kind of a complication that I'd love to own. And a date function on the daily watch is pretty useful in my opinion. So that's a plus. Okay, the next watch on this list is the Tudor Black Bay 36. And I'll just say the Black Bay range is recommended to me so heavily. Just any collector I know who owns one speaks highly of it. Maybe with the exception of the GMT, that's obviously had some issues in the past and possibly still now. But something like the Black Bay 36, I've just heard great things about, and I haven't actually got to try one on in person. A lot of the watches on this list I've seen on Instagram, and maybe I've seen in like shop windows, but just due to lockdown and obviously the horrible situation we're in right now with the pandemic, I haven't been able to try one on. As soon as lockdown lifts and I'm able to safely go to an AD or a boutique here in Birmingham, I will be, and I will be trying on as many Black Bays as I can, probably the entire range if I can, and as many Oruses as I can too. And I'm sure that'd be a great fun time. Now the Black Bay 36 checks every box on that little list of mine, except the fact it's another Tudor. But as I've said, I don't really want to end up just collecting the same brand that I know I like. I want to kind of put myself out there and experience a different brand and ownership of a different brand, not just, in an AD. In a similar vein to this, there's also the Tudor Date Day, which they're still making new for the East Asian markets. These are so cool to me because it's effectively a steel Rolex day date with Tudor branding and the Nikkei movement. I really, really want one of these, and it's kind of tempting to break that rule for this. I'm not sure if I prefer this to the Black Bay 36 or not. Due to these having stick hands, it's actually probably more similar to my Tudor Oyster. But I'm still really contested, and it's a design that I really, really love. Okay, so this next piece is a bit strange because I've actually already ordered it. This doesn't mean I've made up my mind, it just means I ordered this watch, I started making this video, and I went, oh, that does actually qualify and could be a contender. And it's not a watch that I bought just to review, although admittedly I am going to make a review of it, and I'm pretty sure it'd be a decent video. But this watch is a Smith's Commando PRS 45. This is homage to the Rolex Commando, which are complete aluminium. And it does actually fit every single one of my parameters that I've set. I didn't set a no homage parameter because I'm normally not a homage kind of guy. I haven't spoken about my opinion on homages on this channel, and that's kind of because I don't want to put myself out there with an opinion because I don't believe I have enough experience with them. I think that would just be snobby. And if people enjoy the watches, I really have no issue with it. So I'm excited to try this watch out. I'm definitely going to wear it for a while and maybe do an unboxing and then like a final thoughts review a month or so later. And a big bonus of it is that they only retail for £325, which is what I managed to get mine for, which is just a fraction of my budget. So I end up loving this piece and keeping it, then this whole thing is going to be over and I'm going to be probably much better off financially. So I'm very excited to get that watch in for review. Okay, now the final watch on this list is an interesting one, and it's one that I only really stumbled across this week. I've done like already probably 5 or 6 hours of research on it because it really sucked me into a bit of a research frenzy. But again, I saw a nice picture on Instagram and I went, oh, I really like that. How can I get one? Is it within my budget? Is it within my size? And actually could be if I get lucky. Now, this is the IWC Angenoux SL 34mm. This is on the lower end of my size range, although I actually wear watches down to 32mm, so it's not a huge turn-off for me. But I've been told by a few collectors that the 34mm case with the integrated bracelet wears larger, so maybe it wears like a 35, 36mm. That's right in the middle of my range, and that's really great for me. These come in either quartz or automatic. A quartz white dial I could probably acquire pretty easily within my price range. The black dials are trading at a premium, and the automatic movements are also trading at a premium. So if I can get either one of those within that £2,000 range, I'd be really thrilled. It's a design I love. For those of you who don't know, it's a gel Genta design, so the same designer as the AP Royal Oak and Patek Nautilus. Also, it's important to point out that IWC as a brand does interest me. So owning one and adding one to the collection would be a really cool opportunity. And with a design like this, I see no better time to do so. If I can stretch my budget and manage to find a good example for under that £2,000 limit I've set myself, And I think from all the watch on this list, just because I've been researching this one so much recently, this is kind of my top ideal outcome, besides the Smiths, I guess, because that is already happening. So anyway, to wrap this video up, let me know what you think of all my kind of options I've laid out here. Let me know which one's your favorite. Let me know if you think you know a watch that might check a lot of these boxes, which I haven't mentioned or that I might not be aware of. I'd be interested to hear. I haven't said this yet, but I'm not really looking at micro-brand pieces. A lot of micro-brand pieces I find are too big for me. But if you guys know some micro-brands that make smaller pieces, I'd definitely be interested in putting my money into a smaller or independent brand as opposed to one of these larger manufacturers, which is mostly what I'm researching around here. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day.